Hello, welcome back. So today we're going to talk about VS dataset, the vital signs dataset. So the vital signs dataset, as per the SDTM implementation guidelines, it is the findings domain. So this is a finding classification. It has a one record per vital signs measurement per time point per visit per subject. So basically, it explains for each subject has one vital sign. For each subject has as per one vital signs per time point per visit. Okay, so in this case as well, each subject will be having multiple records, and here the topic of the variable is vs testd for the vs domain. Let's continue with the programming part. And when you come to the specification, here we have these variables to create. Okay, and already filtered out for both required and expected variables. So there are some few permissible variables as well for now. There are many of them. Okay, so we'll continue with those ones later, but I'll keep it as it is now. For now, I don't want to change. Okay, let's continue with this one for the R programming. So here we just trying to erase this part. So Control L. Okay, so I want to remove this one. Control L. Okay, so I want to read the libraries, words, libdate, admiral, stringer. Then I put the setting working directory, that is this part. Then I put the raw data set, bringing the raw data sets, then SGTM data sets. I'm reading the VS is the raw data set because the vital raw is the main uh, data set we have to get. Raw data set we have to get from that folder. The vital raw, the data set. This is a SAS data set, so we need to if we need to read this one, we have to have use this function read.sas. Now we got a VS dataset. So we have a DM dataset here. Okay, let's continue with we are going to create a VS1, which is the main the new dataset by setting VS as a raw dataset. Then pipe symbol is continue for creating the new variables line, creating the variables. The method functions, if we want to create the new variables, we are using the method function. Then if we want to modify existing variables, we have to use method function. This is coming from the deployer package. So it is a similar pattern how we did with AE and exposure. So the study ID mapping to the study ID. When you check VS dataset, you will be having study ID. So basically it's just mapping, direct mapping. So VS is the short form of vital signs. So this is the domain name, and the subject ID. We are mapping the subject ID by removing by using the trim WS functions, which remove the extra unnecessary blanks or whatever the blanks we have. We compress trailing blanks basically. So I'm mapping to the subject ID, then site ID the site. Then unique subject ID is the concatenation of the page study ID, subject ID, site ID, subject ID, and by separating with the hyphen in between. Okay. Then VSDTC is a vital signs date, which is a combination of when you check. So when you check VSDTC, so here, so concatenate date and time, and derive options. So check this part. Have any information here for the visit information vital signs? Okay, we are here. So here we have time point, schedule time, pulse rate, temperature, blood pressure, systolic blood pressure, well-being, pulse rate, temp rate, systemic, diastolic, then recording time, REST. So this is the time, RESDT and RSDTM. So this is the one we have to map for VSDTC. So here we have RE So RESDT and REST, these two times we have to, these two variables we have to map for the VSDT, vital signs date. Okay, the time point will be the time point here. So for each, so we have a time point, check in, and 0 and 2 hours and 8 hours, then check out. So this is the this is different time periods the subject went through, and taking that essential readings for the pulse, the pulse, like the temperatures, like after giving the drug administration. So the period one, so they have a different intervals. The blood is sampling, blood is taking, and from that we checking that pulse and temperatures, like vital signs we have checking this. Okay, so sorry, this is not a blood, this is a vital sign. Just taking the measurements for the vital for zero, for like checking time, and 0 minute and 2 hours and 8 hours, and checkout times. So this is all about checking the vital signs, the pulse, temperature, systemic blood pressures, and diastolic blood pressures. So this is the data set. We get all this information from the vital signs. Okay, so that so as per the TPT, VSTPT, we do what we do from TP. VSTPT is TP. There is no programming notes. Um, Continue with that. So VSTPT num. So this is a numeric point of time point. So whenever, because we're giving the number for this, whenever TPT, like time point, VSTPT is check-in, you just careful with this tilde symbol, and make sure the parenthesis for one mutate. Like for example, if you click this one, so you see the highlighted part, it is for this mutate, it will be here only. Okay, and when you using the another mutate, make sure you'll be having the pipe symbol here. Pipe symbol is separated from two mutates. It won't be, you won't be continue with, because if you don't have a mutate from pipe symbol here, it will give an error. So make sure when you separating the two main points, like two mutates, so you should be connecting with the pipe symbol. Okay, and VSTPT num, if you want to have allotting the numbers, so you always have to, because you're creating the new variable, right, the VSTPT num. So for that reason, and you modifying the existing, you checking the existing variable, and you creating the new variable, then that we have to use mutate function. So the case when is the main if else conditions. So whenever is a check-in, TPT is in check-in, then we allot it as a 1, and it is a numeric, so there is no apostrophes here. And whenever it is 0 time, and it is indicated as a 2 and 3 4, and checkout will be the 5. And if there is no thing, then we miss it as a missing. There is no information has given for the VCTPT, is we consider as NA. Okay, and similarly for the visit num, for the new variable visit num, the case when, like whenever we have a screening, we give it as 0. Whenever we have a period for visit, for example, if you go to the visit variable here, so screening period 1 and period 2, it is in the capital letters. So whenever we're considering the this one, the screening part, it will give you as 0 and the remaining 2, and if there is a missing, we consider as a NA. And this is the tilde symbol. Tilde symbol is indicating the giving the value to that particular, like if you had a screening, that then that consider as a 0. If it is period 1, then consider as a 1. Like that we assign that values. Okay, let me run this one. Okay, so the VS1, so we have a visit time point num and visit num and the visit time point. Okay, and VSDTC, got all this information what we need. Then we'll continue with the uh, next part. So here, when you check the raw data set, basically, because this is a quite bit complicated part to understand. So you see here, pulse, pulse unit, pulse standard, as a pulse rate, pulse rate, I don't know. Okay, so the temp unit, temperature rate, pulse rate, systolic blood pressure, systolic blood pressure unit, systolic blood pressure rate, diastolic blood pressure, blood pressure rate. So here it is given in the column wise, right? So we need this one to convert as a row wise. So for that we need, it is just similar works like, or the proc transpose in the SAS. So the pivot longer is the function we call. So we have to, when you transpose the ID like pulse temps is to um, row wise, we have to be start first arrange by using this all variables study ID, domain, unique subject ID. We have to sort it first, then we use a longer pivot longer functions. So you have to use what are the columns we have to get as a row wise. So in that C is, if you have a multiple variables, then you have to keep it as a C. That is a calls column, we have to use it, I mean calls name. Then the name we have to give vs test cd, and values we have to consider as a vs standardized results. Okay, let me explain you okay, let me explain you what is the difference. There are 2 points here, is very you have to be very careful. So there are two functions which I want to discuss the difference between these. So the pivot longer and pivot wider. So the pivot longer and pivot wider, these are both used in our language. It works similar like proc transpose. So if you have a like wide to long, this is the directions, and long to wide, for example, the columns, long columns, long white columns, it becomes to the row. Okay, for example here we have e1. Okay, so here we have so two columns, like let me explain the pivot longer. You see the columns are there, q1 score, q2 score, and when you apply the pivot longer, it will becomes a row wise, like q1 q2 q1 like that. But for the pivot wider, when you have a row like q1 q2 q1, is the reverse, like then it becomes to the column q1 and q2. So this is the difference. So for us, we should need, um for us we have pulse, it is in the column wise, right? So for that reason we have to use a pivot longer. Okay, okay, so here the values to standardize. So let me run this one first. So pivot longer. Okay, so vs2. Okay, so here we see in the VS test series. So you see the columns becomes rows, the pulse temps is dia, right? So the result, the value for this particular parameter, it comes like 93.0, 98.5. So becomes row wise. Yes, then after once we done that part, then we have to assign what is the pulse, like the name of the, like instead of abbreviation we keep it as sysbp bp. Okay, if you check in the specification here, vs test cd, don't have that one. We have any control terminology, even the control terminal doesn't say, there is no information there. Anyway, so the pulse become pulse, the temperature we are just assigning for the vs test cd, and for the vs test observation part of vital signs test. So it is a pulse means pulse rate, temp means temperature, sys bp means systolic blood pressure, dia bp means diastolic blood pressure, and the original results as characters, because we are converting into the character format, because as per here VSORRES, it is in the character format. So this is the finding in original units. So the VS, whatever that we have derived here, so we are changing it to the original unit in the character format. Let me run this one. So when you check the VS3 here, so you can see here VS test, we have the abbreviation part, and the VS test CD, then we have original result. It is in the, oh, there is no floating point. Okay, so we have a floating point here, 98.5 and 97. So just removing the point 0, so that is fine. So we continue with so this one we have done VS3, then we do another one for the pulsar, because you remember we have pulse here, pulse, temp, this dia. So we have pulse R, temp R, this R, dia R. So the results, the pulse rate. So we need to do the similar fashion how we did with the pulse. So we do the same thing. So we consider pivot longer, right? We use this one and we consider this part is VS because we already have original result in the numeric, the standard result in numeric there. So we just not to make any just not to make any overlapping, so we're just trying to create as a new name here. So let's run this part. Make sure you have to sort before you do the transpose. So VS4, so we'll be having extra, you see, pulsar and the VS test CD. Okay, so we have pulsar here and the result of the standard result there for normal. Then we do the similar fashion with the units now. No, we are arranging VS test. If it is pulsar, we're creating as a pulse temp. We're making everything in the everything in similar fashion. If it is pulsar as well, we consider as a pulse. So for VS test CD and the standardized character result, we're taking out this one because this for VS4 these are the character result, right? So these are the character is a normal, abnormal, normal. These are characters. These are not numeric values. So thus we consider it as a character result, standard character results. Okay, that is and the baseline flag. So make sure you have a pipe symbol when you continue with the method functions. So the baseline flag is basically if you have a 0, then we consider giving that y, else is missing. Okay, that is only what. Let me check. So here, else null, VS, if the record has last non-missing values and VSDTC prior to RF access, then VSBLFL equal to Y. The record has last non-missing values. So make sure there is no missing values. So VSTPT equal to 0. So 0 means before screening, right? The TPT, like this is the one, last missing. If the record has last non-missing value. So last non-missing value means this is the one because there is no missing. Okay, so this is the baseline value because the check-in is just entering the screening period. The period 1 is the initial point, initial one for before giving the administration. So the 0 will be the baseline value here. So if it is the baseline value is y, I mean 0, then we consider as y. Then if it is true, is missing. Even you can check in the CDISC, the indicator uses to identify the BSLFL, uses to identify baseline value if the value should be y or null. Okay, we clear with this one. Once we derive this part, then we have VSDTN. We are considering only the date part of VSDTC. Then we have a special, check the special attention here because here you have seen minus symbol, right? Because we don't want these two variables VSTCD1 and VSTRCN1 because we're trying to, we already derive for the VSTRC for the VSTRC, so we don't need that part. And VSTCD we already derive for VSTCD, so we don't need this part. So this is, we're dropping the variables. The minus symbol indicates here is dropping from this data set. Okay, if there is no minus symbol, which means we are selecting only those two variables. Now we have a minus symbol, so we are dropping it. You can see here VS5. Now we have VS test CD, VS character format, standard character result character format. Okay, let's continue with the next one. Now we are considering the unit part. So we have completed pulse and pulsar. Now we have pulse units, temp units, systematic units, right? They have units are available, so we have to do the similar fashion. So we are deriving as a new variable VSTest CD2 N2. Okay, then once we run this one, the V6 here, so we have two variables are created with the units. Okay, then we do the same thing. Pulse unit we consider as pulse for the VSTest CD, and original unit, vital signs original units per minute we consider as beats per minute. Okay, Okay, so the VS test cd case when this is also similar like how we did here. So we are just creating giving that name. Then original result, if it is a per minute as per the control terminology, we're changing to beats per minute. You see here per minute, we're changing to sponsor value beats per minutes. Like that we have changing if it is mm of hg, we converting as mm of hg convert hg. So as per the control terminology, we are standardizing this part. Okay, then we doing the standardized unit with original unit. Okay, so it'll be the similar things. Then we are dropping these two vs cd and vstr sn2. So we don't need those records, those variables. Okay, so vs7. So here we have original units and standardized original unit. It will be the same, both of them in this case. Okay, then we'll continue. We arrange study ID by using this all um, the variables, because this is each subject have per one record has per visit wise and time point wise, you know, and measurement. So based on that one, we have to consider the numeric part should be always be in the front. After that, VSTPT. So here visit num, then character format, then VSTCD. So I'm sorting based on that one. So all of them I have sort. Then I'm merging both of them, VS3 and VS5, by common variables. Whatever the sorting variables I have, I'm using those ones. Just sort. And I do with the same thing with the VS7 and VS8, because I'm doing with the VS3, VS5 first. Then I'm doing with the VS7 and VS8 to get the VS9 is the last data set. So when you open the VS9 here, so I'll be having all that records. Okay, I have double. I think it's giving in different way, but okay. So instead of it's giving the dot x. You're seeing the dot x here, right? Because it's just adding up the different, like different from the different data set. It's just adding up with the dot x. For example, if you go here, we have a temp ry. This ry. If you go here again, and we'll be having another ones. So the three data set we have merged, right? So it will be having three data sets. The merging. Okay. Then we have to create the variable deriving from the DM dataset. So it will be the similar fashion how we did with the DM to calculating the RFSTDTC for the study day calculations. So if you check here in that VSDY, this is we sponsor reference start date, right? So we have to get from the demographic dataset. So once we get that RFSTDTC, then we have to sort both of them VS9. Then we merge with inner join by using unique subject ID. Okay, so I'm also here creating the VSDY here. You see, if there is no, it should not have missing values. If it is less than, then we have to create VSDTN minus RFSTDTN and VSDTN. If else, VSDTN RFSTDTN plus 1. So this is the similar how we did with the LBDY the study day calculations. Then we continue with the group by unique subject ID. Then we are creating the sequence one, because each subject has a multiple records, right? So we're giving that for each record we're giving the name number for that particular subject. Okay, so thereafter we let me open. So we select thereafter we select what are the variables required for the final data sets. So I select all of them. So in the VS final data set, we'll be having all 18, like 18 variables are here, right? 18 variables and 16 data sets. So you see VS sequence. Let's check. This is the subject. So this is S1 subject, right? So S1 subject up to here to 36. Up to 36, you will be having 36 sequence. After that, because the subject was changed, so it becomes again the name of the sequence number will be the difference. So it will be continue the similar process. Okay, so once we're done and we applied the similarly, we have applied, we will be applying that label part. Okay, Control L. So we then these labels we have to apply for this variable names. Okay, so this is the final data set for the vital signs. So we'll be having that labels are here. VSTPT, all we have get the required ones, the VSTPT num, domain, and original units, the character, result finding standard formats, and the numeric results. Okay, then we have standard units, the baseline flag, and the visit num, the screening sequence, and the study day calculations. Study day. Okay, then we save it as a RDS format. So we go here. So we go here. This is a VS RDS, and we copy this one. We save it here. All right. So that's all for today. We'll continue for the Adams dataset tomorrow onwards. Thank you so much for watching.